Hi, and welcome to Chapel Hill Maker. I'm Rachel, and I love knitting and making here in beautiful Chapel Hill, North Carolina, for now. Today, I'm going to share with you my current works in progress, as well as how a knitter like me prepares for what sounds like it is going to be a once-in-a-decade storm. So I'm so happy you're here, and I hope you'll stick around with me. You can find me on Instagram as Chapel Hill Maker and Ravelry as well. I have those links below, and I hope you'll follow along with my makes and shenanigans over on both of those platforms. So if you are anywhere in the swath from Texas to the Carolinas, and I guess the Northeast as well, you may have heard that we are prepping for a huge storm. And so, it brings with a little bit of stress and anxiety, but also some excitement for laying low for a few days and just tucking in with family. So I'm going to sort of quickly go through my regular podcast plans. First off, what I am wearing is the Dagmar jacket by Petite knit, and this is sort of one of those heirloom knits that I'm so proud of. I knit this, I believe, in the size 2. It definitely is generous and super cozy. I throw it on over everything. The only modification I made, if you can see, is that I did seed stitch in right here in the big cable. I thought it kind of needed a little extra something, and just wanted to make it a little more give it a little more depth. So I knit this out of Hudson and West Forge, and sadly they are not making yarn anymore. It's a great sort of workhorse worsted yarn. We've lost a bunch of those recently, but Harrisville Shetland I think is a good replacement. It has tooth but is still soft, and I think it will really last for years, and expect that this is one of those jackets that my kids will want, although they keep reminding me I should make my sleeves longer because I have really short arms and they don't, so it does prevent sweater stealing in my house. So this is the Dagmar. I loved making this, and I wear it a ton. So, and it's one of those, if you want to tackle like an all-over cable, check out this one. Really love it. So that's what I'm wearing today. And I have a few half-finished objects today. Don't have any other FOs, but as I've talked about before on the channel, I knit socks mostly when we go to Carolina Hurricanes games, and so I have two. I have this, which is a half finished object. It's just a vanilla sock with 56 stitch sock on size 1 needles. I don't know if you can see the color. It's gotten a little bit dark in here. I knit the leg until I got tired of making it, and then I did a shadow wrap heel, and I think this is called a wedge toe. It's just where you decrease 4 stitches every other round until you get down to your desired number of stitches. And this is made out of Amble from Fibre Co, which also sadly is going to be closing its doors too. It's kind of a theme here today. And their yarns are fantastic. I've made a bunch of things from them, and so I'm sad to see them go. But this is Amble, their sock yarn. If you're able to get your hands on some before they run out, I highly recommend it. It's a plumper sock yarn, and so maybe for those of you who don't love the feel of hand knitted socks on your feet, this might be a good option. It has kind of a I don't know if you can see this, but it has kind of a high twist, and so I wonder if that would make it less prickly on your feet, but I never have a problem, so it's hard for me to speak to that. So yeah, so I'm gonna cast on the second one. This has been sort of waiting to be cast on, and I always have a few socks just on the go so I can grab one. And then this one also is from a mill that is sadly no longer making yarn, and that's Echoview Fiber Mill, and this is their base Lapidary. And this is an interesting yarn because it's, I don't know if you can catch the color there, but it is 50% Tencel and 50% Merino, which I've never knit with a base like that before. This one I did a 2x1 cuff and knit down. I did a shadow wrap heel out of, this pattern was from Knitty. I think their fall or summer issue. And I thought it was interesting. It was an Eye of Partridge shadow wrap or short row heel. And I had a little bit of a time following it, but I thought it came out really cool. And so I will definitely give it a go. I did on the second sock, and this is what happens when you knit at hockey games. I didn't have the pattern with me, and I didn't want to look down at a pattern anyway. So I just did my standard shadow wrap heel. I don't know if you can see it here, but I included like an Eye of Partridge slip stitch pattern, and which is just slip one, knit one, purl back, and then knit one, slip one. So you do the opposite. And I think it came out really pretty. They're definitely different. This is squishier and a little more substantial than this. So hopefully this will fit. I'll try it on after I get a few more inches down. But they're socks. Who's gonna look that closely at my heel? And if they work, they work. Socks are sort of my place where I let go of some of the perfectionism and self-criticism and just knit, because I really enjoy the, keeping my hands busy. And so they're kind of just my fidget spinner of knitting, and I love always having one. So I have that sock going. I'll cast on the second sock with Amble, and I'll have that one ready. But moving right along, I have I cast on for, sorry, my stuff is down here. I cast on for the Luffe mittens. I didn't get that far, but oh my goodness, how satisfying is a 2x2 stripe? And it works up really fast, and it's so potato chippy. I'm not doing anything to hide my jog here. I don't mind it that much, and I often find that the cure is worse than the disease in this case, and I feel like it's pretty subtle. And I don't know why I find this so satisfying when you see the way the yarn gets carried up on the inside. But these are kind of just in the wings when I need something to pick up and knit a couple rounds. I am going to visit Madi, Colorado Knitter in March, and I wanted to make sure that I had some nice warm mittens to bring to Colorado. So, so those are good to go. And that pattern is by NON Kjeldsen. I think I'm pronouncing that. It came from a kit from Fibre MacGyver. And it was a gift from Madi, and another reason I want to have it ready to bring. And the yarn is just delicious, so I recommend that kit. She still has a few on the site, and my guess is she'll be restocking. So definitely go check out her site. And then my last, I think that's my last, I keep looking down at my notes here. My last work in progress is the Moomellow from the Art of the Sea book by Lina. And I talked about this at great length in my last episode, so I won't go too deep into the history of it, but this is a buddy knit that I'm doing with Yeji from NON Co. And we are having so much fun knitting together. I think I'm probably driving her crazy with my million questions. I love to kind of ruminate on a pattern, and when I get close to binding off, I think, should I do this bind off? Should I try a different bind off? Should I? So she has been privy to all of the things that have been circulating in my brain about this pattern, and she's been very gracious about it. I don't She hasn't acted like I've been driving her crazy, but I worry that I am. She's been so sweet and she's so fast. And so the good thing is she's been one step ahead of me the whole time. In fact, she's done. So I can always say, hey, how did you handle this? Did you do this? Did you notice this? And so I am loving our buddy knit. And I think it helps that I'm also loving this sweater. I blocked the top half. You may be able to see where I blocked it, but this yarn just blocks out beautifully. I did not pin or stretch this part, and you can kind of see it better on the back where it's just the 2x1 rib. This yarn blocks really beautifully, and these big chunky cables are so pretty, and it fits so well. I can maybe put a picture of me wearing what I have so far on here. And I've done all but bind off on the body. I went a little bit long on it so that I have room to pin it wider when I block it. So I'll lose a little bit of length. But I've had to sort of improvise a good bit of this because my gauge was half a stitch off over 4 inches, which when it's a 16.5 stitch gauge and I'm getting 16, that will require some adjustments as I learned. So I'm actually doing a little bit below a size 1 because when I was doing the increases for the raglan, it was getting pretty long and I didn't want it to look like I was drowning in this, even though I wanted it to be oversized. So I ended the increases a little bit early, and then I cast on some extra stitches in the underarms so that I could stay on target with the 2x1 rib pattern and the cables, keeping the cables in the center. So this is going so fast. I cast this on January 11th, and I'm now on this sleeve and doing the decreases, and then I'll just have this one to go. And I think it's going to be a really warm, cozy knit that I might need in the next week. So I'm going to do my best to get that done. And I can't recommend it enough. It's been a great pattern to follow. Those are all my current knitting works in progress, and I'm going to do a quick spinning update because I have been really enjoying working on my Hudson mini spinner. And I took a class with them this past weekend, and Amelia Garoppoli was the teacher, and she was great. She's so experienced, but also just so approachable. Like she doesn't have any pretense about her teaching, and I didn't feel stupid asking any questions. And this was on Zoom, and so there were, I think, 6 or 7 of us on Zoom, and I came away feeling so much more confident about using my machine and also just spinning in general. It was such a good refresh. One of my favorite suggestions that she gave was to buy these little embroidery bobbins, and let's see if you can see it there. So she said to, put your single so you know what your single looks like, and that way if you put it down and pick it back up again, you can compare them. And then also put a ply back on there so you can get an idea of what your final product's gonna look like. And I also just kept a little bit of fluff on the end so you could kind of see what the what the fiber looked like pre-spinning. And then you can write all of your information on here too, which I have yet to do. So I did this as a fractal spin, and so these are my singles, and I'm gonna apply these up today. I think I'm really excited. And so I basically just divided the braid in half, and then one of the halves I spun end to end, which is this one. It's this one. You can see the color saturation is a little bit lower because it's being drawn out. And then this one, I separated into quarters and did those each quarter end to end. You can tell there's a lot more color saturation here, so when you see them next to each other. So I'm excited to see how it's gonna ply up. And this is from Nest Fiber. It's Finn yarn, and the color is called Corsage. And it's from my, sorry, it's crinkly, from my Fiber Club from April of 2024. And it definitely looks like an April spring colorway, and I'm excited to see how it plies up, and just really enjoying sort of the repetition and getting my skills up a little bit. So I'll report back out on that after. And okay, so now I'm gonna get into my real reason that I'm filming this video today, which is a little bit early because I'm going to have a house full of people for the next, I don't know, for the foreseeable future. So I wanted to, in a rare moment of quiet in my house, wanted to sit down and film for you. And I'm gonna keep looking at my notes because I've made a bunch. I wanted to talk about how I'm planning to get ready for this storm where we're gonna be stuck at home. And the first thing I'm going to do, as you can see, I'm almost done with that Moomellow. And I have 2 other sweater whips in progress that I would like to pick up and work on. But I mean, I feel like a once in a decade, once in a 20-year storm calls for a new cast on. I don't know, maybe it's just me. So I think I'm going to wind up my yarn before the storm comes because my winding equipment is in a room that will be really cold if our power goes out. So I'm going to go and wind that up, and I think I'm gonna cast on the Harvest Flower sweater by Jessie Made. And I shared that in my 2026 plans, so I'm finally kind of getting back to those. And I think I'm going to follow Stephanie from Edible Thoughts Makes her game plan. She is doing that right now, but put in steeks in the middle to steek it and convert it into a cardigan. And I think that I would get so much more wear out of that in this climate. So that's my sort of knitting storm prep plan. I'm going to have all of my yarn ready, and if I don't end up sort of needing to start it now, it'll all be ready for me to go when I am. And I have a battery pack for my e-spinner, and I'm going to charge that up so it's ready for me in case I want to spin while the power is out. I'm expecting power outages, and if you went to our grocery stores right now, and those of you in Canada and Germany and all of those other colder weather climates where you really have real winter, you're probably laughing at me, but the Southeast, we do not really know how to do winter. As soon as there is a prediction of 1 flake of snow, school is canceled, and everybody runs to the grocery store, buys out all of the bread, the eggs, the milk, and the alcohol. So at least we know where our priorities are here in the South. Funny enough, I can't eat bread. I don't really drink alcohol, so I'm not too nervous about getting to the store and getting what I need. I've already done my shopping. And so my main concern is as a knitter, so that I have everything I need. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to download a bunch of my favorite podcasts to my iPad so that if we lose internet, I still have stuff to watch. And I would say the majority of what I'm watching is knitting videos on YouTube. It brings me calm, it brings me entertainment. I feel like I'm hanging out with a knitting friend. And so I thought maybe I've seen so many other podcasters do this where they share their favorite podcasts, and I've been lucky enough to be included in some of those, and I'm always grateful. So I have a pretty comprehensive list. Like I said, my primary source of viewing is YouTube, and so I'm going to share what I've been watching. Some of them I've shared on the channel before, and so I won't speak as much about them. And the list in the show notes may be more comprehensive than the ones that I'm talking about. So definitely go check out the show notes. And the other thing I would love to hear from you is tell me what you're watching. I think we're all kind of subjected to the algorithm and what it shares for us. And kind of, I check my subscriptions a lot, but I also often click off the For You page. And so yeah, so check out my show notes where I'll have a really comprehensive list, but I'm going to go through fairly quickly, but I have a lot of these to share because these have brought me so much joy and education and even companionship over the years. So I'm looking forward to kind of sharing them with you. Some of them you may have heard of, and some of them might be new to you. I've broken them into categories just for the sake of ease, but a lot of them sort of fit into multiple categories. I just put one in a box because I had to put it in a box. So the first ones are kind of my go-tos, the ones that I click on as soon as I see there's an upload. The first one is Lovely Day Knits, and I've talked about Alicia at length before, but she is wonderful and her content is varied, and I love her product reviews of yarn reviews rather, and project reviews. She's really honest without being unkind, and appreciate her feedback as a relatively new but aggressively practicing knitter. She's done so much and she creates so much, so definitely go give her a look out. If you haven't discovered a friend to knit with yet, please go watch Leslie. Her videos are wonderful too. They're usually 30 minutes or less, and her choice of patterns and colors are so well curated. I don't feel like she kind of goes with the trends. I feel like she picks what she thinks is going to fit into her wardrobe, and I've learned a lot from how she chooses what she makes. The next one is Madi from Colorado Knitter, which I talk about all the time, so I won't go too deep into her, but I love her videos, not only because she's my friend, but also because I think she also is so creative and just goes off script and doesn't feel pressure to create what everybody's creating or even to finish things. She just goes with what feels right to her, and I love that. Next is By a Thread Knits. I find Maddie to be just really cute and funny, and she's self-deprecating, but also so creative, and she does a lot of pattern compilation videos and roundups, and she and I often end up making the same patterns. Either I'll see what she makes and I'll make them, or I'll have made something and I see that she makes them. So we sort of fall into that same range, and I think we're both on the petite side of the scale, and so it's always good to see somebody with your kind of body shape making things and see how they look, because I've definitely been influenced by seeing things on her and going, oh yeah, she looks really cute, I'm totally gonna make that. So and then the last one is Hannah G, and again, her videos are usually short. They're usually around 20 minutes, but she has such a calm demeanor, and I've had the pleasure of meeting her in real life. She's another North Carolina podcaster, and she is just super sweet and very thoughtful about what she makes and what she creates and how she presents things. She also gives really good book reviews, and I'm always happy to get those. My next section is what I called Feels Like Friends, or maybe they just are friends at this point. But the first one are the OG Grocery Girls, Jody and Tracy. I'm sure you've seen them before. They've been on YouTube for such a long time and really pioneered this sort of medium of communication about knitting. And they're just also so sweet and so inclusive, and there's room for everybody in their space. I've met them in person last year at Rhinebeck, and they are in person just as they are on screen. And so I love that they have that mentality of lifting everybody up, and kind of that rising tide lifts all boats kind of mentality, and really enjoy their content. So the next one is Kevin and Ray from Needles at the Ready. I've also had the joy of meeting them in person a few times at Rhinebeck, and they too are just so sweet and so real, and I enjoy their interaction and the way they sort of giggle at each other, and the way they are also so creative of taking a medium that has been largely dominated by women and making it their own, and finding a space for making that fits them, and that creating projects that, you know, they really seem to know themselves and make garments and accessories that fit that personality. And so and they're just the best. definitely go check them out if you haven't already, but who hasn't checked them out already? Next one is the Knitting Posse, and Kate, Laura, and Kim, also just so, can I stop saying nice? But they're so nice. I met them in Rhinebeck the last 2 years, and they too just really love kind of being a part of the community, and I enjoy seeing sort of the different things that they make and how they bring their personalities into each of their projects. And I've definitely gained inspiration from their making, but also just really enjoy their friendship. And I think because it's 3 of them at their on their podcast, I feel like I'm just kind of at a knit night hanging out with them. My next one is Edible Thoughts Makes, and I mentioned Stephanie earlier, but she just is so analytical and creative, and she's not afraid to kind of go off book with patterns and try what's gonna work for her. And I love the things that she makes, and I love that they all are so uniquely her, and she has a real point of view, and I think that's so important in crafting and making. And I also just love seeing a little bit about her life in Minnesota and her nature walks and the snow. And she also has been really generous to me both here and on Instagram. We've had some really fun chats, and I was excited to learn that at one point her road led her through Chapel Hill, and so we have that in common too. Next one is Piece for Piece Crafting, and I've talked about Michael before. I think he's wonderful, and not only is he so kind and sweet and interesting and creative. I've loved the book club that he's started, so if you're interested in that, check it out. I think we have our second meeting coming up this weekend, and I had so much fun on the first one, and just interacting with people I would never have the opportunity to meet, and chatting about a book that we've all taken in, and everybody really was so engaged, and so I'm looking forward to the next one. Next is Knitting with Ev, and she's a maker out of Vancouver, and she also is just very genuine and quirky and willing to kind of take a risk in her making. And I love her style. I love what she chooses to make, and she's also gotten very active in spinning, and I've learned a lot about spinning from her as well. And she makes me kind of giggle, and I feel like I'm hanging out with somebody that I know while I'm watching her podcast. Next is Table 10, and again, I've talked about them before, but Renee and Rachel are, again, just like, I love putting on their podcast while I'm spinning or knitting and hearing what they're up to. They tell a really good story. They're those friends that, like, you tell them a story and they immediately have one that's like funnier and more exciting or more harrowing, but you don't care because you love hearing them tell a story. So check them out. They're just great. They're in Pittsburgh, and I got to meet them in Rhinebeck this year too, and we instantly just clicked. So definitely go give them a watch. The next in my Feel Like Friends category is the Fat Squirrel. I don't know if you've seen her. She's been on the channel, on the platform for longer than most, and she is Amy Beth, and she makes awesome project bags, so definitely check her out. And she has the cutest dog named Gus, and I feel like when she's talking, it's like my internal dialogue is like coming out of her mouth, and she's really bright, and I love her word choices. And again, she's someone who just does what makes her feel creative and feel inspired. It doesn't always have to be knitting. It can be embroidery. It can be sewing, and I love her perspective. So please check her out. And then the last one in my Feels Like Friends category is Yeji, who I just talked about, and she and I have become friendly over YouTube and Instagram, and she's, again, as sweet as she seems on camera. But what I love about her channel is that she does a lot of project blogs, and she's an incredibly prolific maker. And I love seeing her projects from start to finish, and she's so smart about how she adjusts patterns to fit her. And she's also, what I've learned through this buddy knit with her, is she's so confident in her making and in her decisions. And if she has to go back, she goes back. But that's been really helpful for me to just see her kind of go for it. And that's been great. And Yeji and Maddie from Buy a Thread knit together in Portland, and sometimes, Seattle rather, and sometimes they've done a couple crossover episodes, and it's always fun to see their friendship too. So the next one is who I go to for knitting expertise, because as I always tell my students, like, you can find almost anything on YouTube to learn how to do it, and just enter the search term and knitting and you're gonna find it. And I'm gonna go through these quickly because my guess is that you all are going to a lot of the same people, but maybe not. My first one is Roxanne Richardson. She is the OG of knitting instruction and tutorials. She also has a weekly, she calls it Casual Friday podcast, and it's almost like a magazine show, and she chronicles some stuff in the world of fiber, and then also chronicles her pattern making. And she's a master hand knitter and incredibly knowledgeable, and she's done these really cool experiments of, knitting a pattern from every decade of 100 years, and she really approaches her knitting very academically, and that to me is really interesting because it's kind of how I wish I approached knitting, but she inspires me, and she's just so smart. She's so smart. The next one is Ellen at the Chili Dog, and her tutorials are among my favorites. I usually will either go to her or Roxanne first, and for just sort of general knitting techniques, and they're both great. And Chili Dog is really succinctly presented and doesn't do any like unnecessary talking in a tutorial, and just sort of gives you what you need. And that's generally what I'm going to YouTube for at this point as a more experienced knitter. And they're really clear, and they kind of always work. The next is Earth Tones Girl, and Denise is, I've talked about her numerous times. She's just a really great teacher. And if you want to learn about socks, she's your girl. Go check her out. The next one is Knitting the Stash, and Melissa has also been on the platform for a really long time. She does a lot of garment modification. She will never knit a pattern exactly to the direction. She will always modify it to fit her body, and she talks you through it, and I've learned just so much about that from her as well. And then Mostly Knitting, Tosh has both a regular podcast, which is fantastic. She's in Australia, and she's very prolific, but she's also a great teacher, and so her tutorials are wonderful too. I'm going to speed this up because I feel like I have a lot more on my list, and I don't want to bore you. The next one is Designer Inspiration, and I love seeing how makers make, and these are all designers that I'm pretty awed by, and they are so talented and so gifted. And so I'm kind of going to just go down the list. And if you haven't seen Veronica Lundberg's channel, she does full tutorials of many of her patterns, and then also gives a lot of background into her life too. And she doesn't take herself too seriously, and also is a serious maker. So that's Kuda Vakika. The next one is Sari Knits with Sari Nordland, and her name speaks for herself. And Veronica and Sari do some crossovers together, and they're really fun to see. They're both in Finland, and I guess they became friends in a yoga class, which I need to start doing yoga if that's the case. I'll Knit If I Want To with Andrea Mowry is a great weekly cast where she answers questions, shares her new designs, but she also has some fantastic tutorials that I go back to again and again. Teti's Knit Garden is Teti Lutzak, and I love her designs. They're ethereal, but I love seeing what she's making and how she's making it. Summer Lee Socks, she is just so cool, and her color choices are cool, and her vlog is super neat. She has like a Wes Anderson kind of style to her videos, and I love them. I love her personality and the way she comes across as well. And then the last one is the Knit Pearl Girl. Sophie is I love hearing her talk through her design process, and does that at length, and she's very detailed, and I love her patterns, and so it's fun to sort of see how the sausage is made on that, like hear what her thinking is. The next section I'm calling vibes. The ones that I tune into because I love the way they film and the way they present, but also I love their projects and the way, their yarn choices, their atmosphere on the whole. And the first one is Casey at Young Folk Knits, and I've been watching her since the beginning, and it's really been fun to watch her progress as a podcaster in addition to progress as a maker. But I love seeing footage of their farm life and hearing about it, and also just seeing all of her makes. They're just really creative. The next is Inga at Knitting Traditions, and she is in Norway and will sometimes film the fjords outside of her back deck, which are spectacular. It's a Sarah who very ambitiously records her podcast in both English and I think in Dutch. I'm pretty sure she's in the Netherlands. But she is, again, a really creative knitter and crocheter, and I think a sewist as well. And I love kind of seeing little glimpses into her really colorful and creative life. And the last one is a new one to me that I learned from Yeji, Ruby and Pearls, and she is in the coast of, I think she's on the coast of England, and she does a lot of footage of her countryside, and it's beautiful, but also her project choices and modifications are really interesting too, and her dogs are super cute. And then the last knitting podcasts that I'm sharing are some smaller channels that maybe the algorithm hasn't given to you, but I've gotten to see. And I'm going to just mention a couple of them, and then the rest I'll put in the show notes as well, because I ended up giving you my whole list anyway. So the first one is a new one. I just found her last week, and it's Sarah with an H Makes, and she is knitting a hat a week for the next year to donate to charity as a way to knit through her stash. And so she does really short update videos. She's really funny, and I think she's also a North Carolina maker, which always happy to share more from the Old North State. And so she's, definitely check her out. The other is, the next one is Home Alone at Minnesota, MN, and that's Maggie. And I love her Minnesota accent so much, and she's a knitter, and I think she crochets too, and a sewist, and really fun podcast. Knit LA with Andrea, who I had the pleasure of meeting in Rhinebeck, and she's so California and chill, and I love her vibe, and I love the things that she makes. Jeff at Losing My Knit is really funny and creative, and I love seeing how makers make our craft work for them, and he's definitely one of those. Sarah at Little Dynamite Knits is also super fun. She did a great Vlogmas this year, and it was fun to see her slice of life up in Philly, and so definitely check her out, and I'll put a couple more in the show notes as well. The last thing I'm going to share with you is some non-knitting channels that I go to over and over again. And the one that I go to sleep to all the time is, there may be a few channels, I don't even know, but it's called like Boring History for Sleep or something. I'll link it, but someone just got home. The puppy is barking. Miss Poppy is being a watchdog, so she's gonna hang out with me so I can get through these last few podcasts. Okay, so ones that I love that I go to often are my Boring History for Sleep, and it works. And the next one is called Sheffield Made Plants, and he is a really sort of practical plant enthusiast, and he does a lot of tutorials on how to take care of your plants, and I'm always trying to get better at that. The next one is Great Art Explained and Great Books Explained. They're, you know, two in the same. And they do these like 15-minute reviews of masterpieces or artists and authors, and I love them. It makes me feel smarter in 15 minutes. The next is Emmy Made in Japan, and she does a lot of like testing viral recipes or testing her own, and she's just a ray of sunshine and makes me feel happy. The next one is James Hoffman, and he is a coffee expert, and he does a lot of reviews on coffee machines and coffee makers, and it sounds really boring, but it's entertaining. And then the last one is, which I share on here sometimes in the community section, is Tiny Desk Concerts by NPR. And I have watched those forever since, you know, as long as YouTube's been a thing, I think. But those are great, and you see some of your favorite artists in a new way, and yeah, so check those out too. I think that does it. I think we have reached the end of the list. I'm going to go and make sure that our refrigerators are stocked and that our furniture is taken in and our patio is cleared off and all of the fun things that you need to do to prep for a storm. And hopefully the weather report is totally wrong and all of this is for nothing, but at least we'll be ready. And wherever you are, I hope this finds you safe and warm, and or if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, cool. And I thank you so much for joining me. And again, the comments, thank you for commenting and liking, subscribing, engaging, all of the wonderful ings. And I hope you'll continue to do so because I've loved getting to know you. And thank you again for joining us today. Bye.